I'm Blackbright and I'm broadcasting out the UK. Welcome to my channel and if you want to subscribe, if you want to put the thumbs up, if you want to put the thumbs down, if you want to interact with my subscribers, if you want to leave a comment, you're welcome. Today I wanted to talk about the arrest. Well, was it an arrest? The stop and search of Bianca Williams, bronze winner, British athlete. And I had to talk about it because I I was listening to Sean Wallace this morning on the TV, and Sean Wallace is the guy from The Chase. You know, that big black burly man. He's actually a barrister as well. And I was listening to him, and he had been stop and searched, and he was saying how it's reprehensible for the way they treated Bianca Williams. And I was wondering, is it reprehensible because she's a celebrity, or is it reprehensible, period? You know, unless and or until the police get it wrong and wrongfully arrest people like Sean Wallace and Bianca Williams, nobody's going to know about it. It's a bit like how we witnessed George Floyd being murdered in public. Unless it's people like them who are victims, there's this kind of myth that so I don't know whether, say some middle class blacks, then let me call them that for want of a better word, feel that if you haven't done anything wrong, you've got nothing to fear. There's a lot of people out there who think that youth deserve to be stopped, and they're stopped because of the way they look, by the way they behave, by the way they're dressed. That's what a lot of people believe. They don't seem to get it in their heads that there are rogue police out there who stop people indiscriminately for no reason, just because they feel like it. Now, when they stopped Bianca Williams and she had the baby in the back of the car and they saw her partner, they probably just thought, what are these young people doing on the street with this nice car? How can they afford to buy a car? It wouldn't occur to them that they were celebrities, that they were actually professional people. Because the concept, that concept I keep telling you about, the fact that rogue police only believe that black people are criminals. They cannot believe that they work and earn what they're buying. If they're driving in a nice car, they have to believe it's the proceeds of a crime. They cannot actually conjure up that a black person could work hard enough and long enough and save enough to buy a decent car or nice clothes. Remember, a lot of black people don't want to go on holiday every year. They don't want to spend weeks in Spain or go to Florida or go to Egypt. Some of them do, but a lot of them don't. And those who don't, they decide to spend that money on themselves, whether it's having a nice car, driving up locally, just trying to look and feel accomplished with their hard-earned money. And yet, when the police see a black person in a decent car, it's almost like they feel as though they're not entitled to it and they couldn't have got that car legitimately. So, we're talking about Sean Wallace and Bianca Williams and the stop and search by the police, where it was unjustified and the use of force was excessive. I mean, the baby's in the car. Is there no empathy? The police are supposed to be supposed to be safeguarding children. Did you know that? They have a role to safeguard children. And every month they have something called the multi-agency conference. And it's to do with domestic abuse. And you have the police that head that. And their role is to protect children from domestic abuse. because they know the impact it has on children. And yet, the police officers would assault parents in front of a child. What is the difference between what the police are doing, traumatizing children, and what a child experiencing domestic abuse in the home? The impact of that. There's no difference. So the police have to question their role. Are they protecting the public, or are they making themselves feared by the public? What is their role? Do they not want us to go to them and ask for help? Is that what this is about? Is it about them just wanting to get on with whatever it is they're doing unchallenged because they have the power? Sometimes I wonder, when they panic. Well, it seems as though they panic. I mean, they behave so erratically when you watch them on these videos. I mean, it's not rational, it's not professional, it's disproportionate, it's unnecessary. And you kind of ask yourself, number one, there's usually lots of them. And number two, this excessive force that they use. I'm trying to think, why did they respond that way? Are they envisaging the worst case scenario and reacting to the worst case scenario? I don't know. Sometimes, the other day I was wondering, because they've got this Y Stop app. The Y Stop app, if you haven't heard of it, is the letter Y and stop. And what happens is you can fill any kind of police injustice. You can download it on an Android or an iOS phone. And what it happens is that, you record on it. Hopefully you get the police number. And when you shake the phone, just supposing they're trying to take the phone from you, which is quite good. So if you shake the phone when they're trying to take it from you, it actually sends the image off to the Y Stop team, who then get in touch with lawyers, or they can, if you want, it can go to the Complaints Commission of Police. I mean, you can do it anonymously, or you can do it, because you sign in when you download the app, you put your name and your email address on it. So I guess if you don't want to be identified, you probably put a fictitious name or whatever. I don't know. But all I'm saying is that you can do it anonymously. But what I was getting at is, I was wondering if the police are overreacting because they don't want to be filmed and they want to get the phone. So the only way they can get the phone is to handcuff you and then take the phone. Because the first thing they seem to be doing these days is seizing the phone and damaging it and doing all sorts with it. So I was wondering if that's the reason why they're responding so erratically. Because it doesn't make sense. You're in England. I doubt if anybody's got a gun. There might be a few, but I doubt it. I mean, the odds of the police stopping somebody who's got a gun. So therefore, why are they using this disproportionate force? And I was thinking maybe it is to get the phone, just in case it's being filmed, just in case they're being filmed, because now that's the way they're being evidenced, isn't it? They're being evidenced through film, and a lot of times, and that means losing their livelihood if they're caught on camera. So maybe they're overreacting to that. I have no idea. It just seems totally irrational, the way the police are behaving. And when you think, it's like they've got no concept of a woman. I kind of think, is it because they think she's a criminal? But even if they did think she was a criminal, why wouldn't they treat her a little bit more gently? They put the handcuffs, and those little handcuffs, they look awful. And then you drag somebody out by those handcuffs, so knowing that how it cuts into your hands and knowing how painful that is. I just don't get their behaviour. It is just so hostile. And that is why when you're thinking about, the head of police is trying to wean out road cops. They're trying to do their best because they do realise that these few road cops are damaging their reputation. And the majority of the country will not trust them if we keep seeing these images of police abusing the public and abusing their powers. How can you trust them? I would like to think if there was something wrong, I could call the police. And I think by and large, you can. But I think it's when they take the initiative. I think if you was to call the police for something, that's probably okay. But I think it's when they take the initiative and they decide they're going to stop you, and they decide they've got a reason to stop you, when you have to be worried. And people just think it's the UK, the USA. UK is just as bad, if not worse. At least in America, usually death is swift. In the UK, death is normally slow. You've got some crazy people out there. Crazy. Somebody sent me something today. I didn't even watch it. I saw some writing. The writing said the police held his nose and stuck a baton down his throat or something. I'm just thinking to myself, we've got some sick people out there. We cannot assume that everybody is normal, that everybody is healthy in their mind. We cannot assume that people, just because they're working or they have a responsible job, that they're happy. And the same way, we cannot assume that the police, everybody in the police force is there to protect our interests and to look after us. We can't. Because there are many who have taken on that job, sad to say, just to abuse the power, just to have that power and know that they can do whatever they want with it because legislation is on their side. The whole criminal system is on their side. And because they've created this image that the black person is criminally minded or is a criminal, they know 9 out of 10 times they'll be successful. The interesting thing is that there has to be a system that's not corrupting the police force. Because when you think about, they're saying there was, I think, how many stops and searches? I think it was 40. Oh, let me read it since it's here. The Daily Mail reported on the 9th of July, which was today, if you're watching it today, that the Metropolitan Police stopped and searched young black males aged 15 to 24 years old 21,950 times between March and May. 3 months, 21,950. And 8 out of 10 frisks required no action. The Metropolitan Commissioner, Cressida Dick, says that only 20% of stop and searches result in an arrest or any other action. But so the thing is that means 80% of those stops and search, they're just for the hell of it. And when you're thinking about 21,950, I don't know what out of how many that is, but they're saying it's disproportionate. So I'd imagine whichever other race is going to be less within 3 months. But there has to be somebody who's not racist, who's recording the ethnicity. Otherwise, that could be swept underneath the carpet, couldn't it? How would we know that all of those arrests don't amount to anything, but no further action? So if the whole police force was corrupt, then you wouldn't have the fact that there was no further action, because it wouldn't make them look good, would it? So there's obviously an oversight board that watches them, and they have to report accurately. And maybe they don't even see anything wrong in the fact that there's no further action. Maybe they just get a kick out of arresting someone. The thing is, with arrest, I thought you had a criminal record, but you only get a criminal record if you get a caution, apparently. So the fact that they pick you up and arrest you doesn't necessarily, it won't show up on a DBS form, but it is on the police national register. To me, that's just like having a criminal record. So all of these people, and that's what I mean, it's like criminalizing them. Oh yes, you arrest them, you don't find nothing on them, so you release them, but you've got all their information. So maybe that's what it's about. Maybe it's got nothing to do with stop and searching and thinking that they've got anything. Maybe it's just to get them on the police system. Because, that's a very, very high number to have no further action for. Meanwhile, all their details have been recorded. They may even have an arrest record. They might not have a criminal record, but they may have an arrest record. So, the fact that they've been picked up and stopped. I mean, so now I will have to argue that Bianca Williams has got a police record. Well, she's on the police record. She's on the system, isn't she? That's what I'm thinking. I mean, this police national register, I'm sure it just doesn't have everybody. I would assume it only has those people who've had a brush with the law. But that's what I'm saying. If 80% of those people have had a brush with the law, there's no further action, and yet their names are on that police national register. It's not good. Anyway, the police, whether or not they're following the coronavirus health protocol or the Section 60 criminal police and criminal act, they're still supposed to follow the Go Wisely protocol. I mean, there's a protocol, a guidance, a stop and search guidance for all police to follow. I've got my own acronyms for it, but let me tell you what Go Wisely stands for. But I need to tell you that unjustified stop and searches, stats from 36 police forces show black people are more likely to be targeted under the stop and search powers than white people. So if you've, I was just going to say, if you've just logged in, I was thinking I was on the radio for a minute. So Go Wisely. The G stands for grounds. The police need to specify the grounds for the search. In the case of the bronze medal and athlete, Bianca Williams, and her boyfriend, the grounds were initially driving erratically. Now, driving erratically is not an offence. You can't be arrested for that. Driving dangerously, yes, because that's breaching the Road Traffic Act. I think it's Section 23. So if they broke a light, yeah, they definitely got a right to stop and search and create a fora and arrest them and do whatever they did, but not for driving erratically. Unless, of course, it was driving dangerously, but they didn't say they were driving dangerously. So the first thing is that they had no right to stop them. So that is the grounds. Under Go Wisely, they need grounds, and they can't just make up these grounds as they go along, like what these police officers were doing. If they see somebody, they have to, like, those police were patrolling in the area, and they were looking for weapons, apparently, according to their superior. So if you're looking for weapons, and then you stop somebody who's driving, unless you believe or you have intelligence to say that there's weapons in the car, how do you make that connection? And the thing with this particular situation was They stopped them because they said they're driving erratically. Then, of course, Rebecca, I don't know if they tried to get Rebecca out first or her boyfriend. But anyway, or if her boyfriend gets out. But I understand that they were cooperating. And then the police decide that, oh no, it's got nothing to do with you driving erratically, even though that's what they said they stopped them. We can smell cannabis on you. Now, why can they smell cannabis on you? Because number one, they think all black people smoke cannabis. Number two, her partner has braids. And you know, when you see a black man with braids, you associate that, or a white person possibly would associate that with the Rastafarian faith and would immediately assume, yes, they smoke ganja. So I know lots of Rastas who don't smoke ganja, who don't smoke. They don't even smoke. But they made an assumption. Number one, they were driving a nice car because they're professional athletes. So remember the one I showed you about the banker? He was driving a nice car. So black people in public are not supposed to drive a nice car. In fact, black people in public are not supposed to be in public if they don't want to be bothered by the police. So even with this particular situation, they actually stopped them for driving erratically. Then they claim, oh, I can smell cannabis on you. No cannabis in the car. They're athletes. They're tested. They can't smoke. So it's all fabrication. But my point is that when you have unconscious bias, whether it's conscious bias or unconscious bias, but when you are so filled with that image that black people are criminals, even if he didn't smell cannabis, he probably would smell it in his mind. You know, they say, as ye believe, you can achieve. So you can actually will yourself. And I believe that's what happens. I believe that especially with people who racially profile, the police who racially profile, or the racist police, I think they genuinely believe that when they're stopping somebody, that person is really a suspect. And it wouldn't surprise me if that police officer genuinely imagined that he smelled cannabis. The irony is that apparently he turns the camera on and then he says, I can smell cannabis on you. So he's got something rolling so that if anything goes tits up, they've got a reason to stop them and search them. Forget about the original reason. Anyway, I'm going off the point, aren't I? So I'm talking about go wisely. So that's the grounds. They're supposed to have grounds to stop you, and they can't contrive them as they're going along and make them up. Then go object. The object of the object that they're searching for. So in this case, the object was cannabis, I guess. So wherever they search or wherever they look, it has to be proportionate. So depending on how much they're looking for. So they couldn't find no cannabis. So what else? And despite the thing is that despite not breaking the law, the police proceeded to handcuff them immediately as though they were criminals. That's the whole thing. You know, they haven't broken a red light. They're driving, minding their own business. They've got a baby in the car. Surely you can look in the car and say, okay, these two people, this is a little young family. But they can't do that. No regard from the fact that there's a woman, no regard to the fact that there's a child. So under Section 23 of the Misuse of Drugs Act, the police have a power to search individuals and their vehicles if they believe them to have drugs on them. So the police then change their reason for stopping them from driving erratically to, I can smell cannabis on you. And so that's not what's supposed to happen. They can't just say they're stopping you for one thing and then change it midstream to something else. That's not how it's supposed to be. The police, oh, I've already said this. The police should not contrive reasons to stop and search organically and hope that one of the accusations might be valid. Self-reflection should reveal racial profiling, but racists tend not to reflect. The reporting police superior said that they were patrolling the area looking for weapons, so unless they believed their car housed weapons, they had no reason to stop them. The problem with stop and search is that when search powers requires reasonable grounds for suspicion, if the perception is warped, so will the grounds of suspicion be warped. The perception in this case was two young people with braided hair driving a Mercedes. Braids to many white people conjures up images of cannabis. The fact that no cannabis was found because they were athletes and are constantly tested did not elicit an apology from the police. Now you would have thought that's the same with Sean Wallace. Sean Wallace, a barrister, he just left the courtroom and the police stopped him saying he fits the profile of somebody who's just done a robbery. Big judge, you know. Shame. Big judge, the police, and they did it twice. And he fits the profile of a somebody who did a robbery. Now, if you see Sean Wallace, very negroid features, a bit like, you know, George Floyd. There's something about black people with negroid features that the police don't like or they feel threatened by. So they approached him and said he fits the description of somebody who's just committed a robbery. Then he says, I showed them my gown and my wig. Now, suppose you didn't have no gown or wig in the bag. You just, I guess, you walk around with it for protection. Because I can understand him having it when he was coming out of the courtroom, but I think he said he was somewhere else and they stopped him. And I was thinking to myself, why would he have his wig and his gown on him then? But maybe he carries it for protection and ID. Because I tell you something, it would have been a totally different story if he did not have that wig and that gown in that bag. If he said to them, oh, look, I'm a barrister, do you think they would have believed him? And that's what should have happened, really. They should have carted him off and he could see how, and he would have the wherewithal to change the justice system. I mean, he was saying that young people, if they contain themselves and they don't lose their temper, they're not going to be badly treated. But some of these police, they turn their camera off, they provoke the young person, and then they turn the camera on when the young person is agitated. And then they'll say the young person is obstructing the course of justice, or they're abusing the police, or they're assaulting the police, and goodness knows what. And it gives them license to use excessive force. Now, a lot of these people like that. They believe that, you know, if you haven't done nothing wrong, you've got nothing to fear. But that's not the case. Look at the banker. Had he done anything wrong? No. So you can't just say, and that's what they used to say about those face recognition cameras. If you've got nothing to hide, well, don't worry about it. But the fact of the matter is that as a black person, you don't have to have done something for them to stop you. Remember, they don't have to have any cause of suspicion. They just have to believe in their mind that you've done something. And if you look a bit shifty, that's it. That's enough. That's enough to cause suspicion. You're in a group, that's another thing to cause suspicion. You're in dark clothes, that's another reason to cause suspicion. You've got a hoodie on, that's another reason for suspicion. Maybe if you've got dark glasses, maybe if you look a bit shifty. So, where am I? I'm still doing this go wisely thing, aren't I? So, how did I get to W already? So we did the object, and OGOW. We've done the warrant, because the police, if they've got plain clothes, they're supposed to show them a warrant. And ID, they're supposed to identify themselves, you know, their tag. S, they're supposed to tell them which station they're from. E, they're supposed to give them evidence. So they've got evidence of the report, SEL, the law, the powers. What powers are they stopping them under? And then why are you being detained? So I kind of lost it. I kind of went off track there. So the legal powers, there's quite a few of them, and this can justify why they can stop you. So you've got the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. You've got the offensive weapons, stolen goods or items to commit theft or criminal damage. Those are two separate ones. Offensive weapons or dangerous instruments. Misuse of Drugs Act 1971, Section 23, and Controlled Drugs Act. Those are two separate ones. Section 60 of the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act tends to be used based on public bias and not rule of law. Lastly, you should be told that you are being detained and the purpose of the search. So they've got quite a wide remit under all of that, why they can stop you. My go wisely, because I was thinking about that go wisely, but that's the formal go wisely. But to me, I think go wisely, G, get evidence first and turn on body worn camera. O, observe and approach suspect with caution, not all guns blazing, cautiously, okay? W, yes, I agreed with that. Warrant card should be shown. If you're out of uniform, also the ID and the station, all in one, all under warrant. I, they should intercept and ask for backup only if necessary. S, safeguard the self, so they safeguard themselves and safeguard the civilian. E, engage respectfully and professionally. L, legal powers. If they're suspected of breaching them, they name the legal powers that they're supposed to be breaching. And Y, I put Y Stop, which is the app. Are you being filmed by a third party? Ensure you follow protocol, including explaining to the civilian why you're stopping and searching and detaining him or her. That is what my Go Wisely would look like. Like I said, there is a Y Stop app that allows misuse of powers by the police to be recorded and sent to the Y Stop team just by shaking the phone, or if you press send. The footage can be sent to lawyers or police complaints board. The police cannot extract it from your phone. And that's the app is available for Android and iOS, and it does have a lock feature. But I was thinking, with a lock feature, how do you know the police ain't going to talk to you for your password? I don't think there's no point having a lock feature, because if they can't damage your phone, they'll do something if it's locked. So yeah, so those people who are recording, they need to get the ID number of the police who is abusing his or her powers. You can program the phone to lock once the film has been recorded, but like I said, vision the police torturing you to get the password. Victor Elisa, he's a former Black Metropolitan Police Chief Superintendent, spoke about the stop and search guidance. That's the Go Wisely I was talking about. As though stop and searches like that on Bianca Williams are an exception to the rule. He claims that if you are compliant, they will avoid abuse of power. I wish I could believe that. It's almost as if they believe that young people are provoking the police, not the other way around. And I think that's how young people are depicted: noisy, irrational, obstructive. And they're not all like that. There is an assumption that if you have nothing to fear, if you've done nothing wrong, then you've got nothing to fear if you've done nothing wrong. But you will know from the video of the banker I shared with you that isn't the case, and it cost him $140,000 to prove his innocence. The perception is that if you're well dressed, knowledgeable, educated, and well-to-do professional, you will not experience racism. But racist police resent black people who are doing well. So you're damned if you're poor and down and out, and you're damned if you're well off and you're living comfortably. So many middle class blacks believe that black youths deserve to be stopped and are genuinely surprised when the likes of Sean Wallace and Bianca Williams and other celebrities are stopped and searched. They realise that this isn't about class and status, it's about being black in public. All the police have to do is perceive you to be a person of interest. All blacks look alike. And under Section 1 of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, Misuse of Drugs Act, Offensive Weapon Act, they can stop if they believe you are a part of a gang, you match their description, they have intelligence, you're a drug dealer, you've just done a robbery, you're planning an escape, you're planning a robbery, you have an offensive weapon on you, you have cannabis on you, you have stolen property on you, you have a weapon that could be used to commit a crime. They believe that you're money laundering or human trafficking, and if you have a nice car, they believe you've used the proceeds of sale to get it. So the majority of police cannot believe that a black person hasn't committed a crime in or her life. Now, if they weren't famous, would we have heard about Bianca and Sean Wallace? I doubt it. All those thousands of people that's happening to, it's nothing. It just slips underneath the carpet. It's just a statistic. But let it happen to the famous people, and all of a sudden, it matters. We don't want certain black lives to matter. We want all black lives to matter. So not just because you're rich and famous, people should take notice. It's great that they're talking on your behalf, but we need all lives to matter. Don't just assume that because we have young people that they're all vagabonds, that they're all criminals, that they're all wasters, because that's not the way it is. I have seen young people, eloquent, articulate, dressed reasonably well. They might not want to wear suits and ties, but they have their own style of dress. So we need to get out of those assumptions about young people. And those assumptions are made through the media. When you see them with the hood and the music, and I don't even know if all of that applies. I don't think we still see the odd ones with their trousers down their butt. But I don't think it's as many as we used to. So hopefully it's dying out. It's about time anyway. We've got somebody called Montel Nouveau who runs a training program for the police in Bedfordshire that scrutinises their practice to facilitate good practice. He says he wants to make sure that police officers do not operate under their own personal bias, but under legislation that Parliament intended. But legislation is so open-ended, isn't it? It's so open to interpretation. Sorry, the arrest itself does not result in a criminal record. I've said that. Let me see. What else? What about the thousands of ordinary people who go through this on a daily basis? That's what I was talking about. Stop and search went down significantly in the mid to late 2018, but then, and that was when the police had training, the stop and search figures significantly dropped. And then they had that hype about the knife crime. Remember, I think it was in about January 2019, between January and March. And then that gave them a reason. I tell you something, I hate being such a skeptic, but I just think to myself, it's a bit funny that all of a sudden the police toe the line, and then there's all this hype about knife crime, and all of a sudden they turn the legislation to the other extreme, and all that training goes down the drain. So stop and search went down significantly in mid to late 2018, and then police were given more stop and search powers to tackle knife crime in 2019. They no longer needed grounds for reasonable suspicion, and as a result, stop and searches increased. Over the last year, stop and searches have increased from 20,000 to 43,000. I saw that somewhere, I can't find it. Corona Health Protection Act legislation empowered police to question individuals why they were not in their homes during the lockdown in May and June, and research found that BAMEs were disproportionately fined and or arrested. But that's not stop and search. You know, the coronavirus, when they're telling you to move on when you're on the street, that's a different legislation. So why do black people fear the police? It's because they're intrusive, they violate their personal space, they're aggressive, rigorous handcuffing, do not allow you to call anyone, do not allow you to speak and defend yourself. They seize or damage your phone. They're overzealous with their physical handling. They can be rude and disrespectful. And they are disproportionately stopped. And then, of course, there was the David Lammy review in 2017. Use of force needs to be reviewed. Police are not using reasonable, proportionate, or necessary force. They are overreacting and using excessive force in a lot of times. Police need to take ownership of racism and biased attitudes, acknowledge racial discrimination in the police force and criminal justice system, and have it addressed. I mean, it exists. All they've got to do is say, okay, yeah, we've got a few guys in here. We're going to have to see how we can train them or get them out or suspend them or talk to them or review their practices. But at least acknowledge it. But for some reason, they're saying, I guess they can't acknowledge it because it's a government organisation. But, you know, they see that it exists and then they make it out like it's the exception to the rule. In a lot of cases, good treatment from police is the exception to the rule. So, Section 60 of the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act gives the police the power to search people in defined areas during a specific time frame if they have any reason to believe that a serious violence will occur and it is necessary to use their Section 60 powers to prevent the serious violence, as in knife crime. But sometimes they extend the area. I mean, normally it's for 24 hours, but sometimes they extend it for a bloody week. And they're supposed to get authority to extend it. I'm not quite sure if they do. I know they've got lesser guys, so it's probably just a colleague. Hey, mate, we need an extra couple of days for this Section 60. Can you increase it for us? Bob's your uncle. Type in a few things, and that's it. You will recall the spate of knife crime around middle 2019. Police do not normally react to violence involving black youths, but they were able to use knife crime as an excuse to increase their stop and search powers, and responded by relaxing the Section 60 by saying they do not need to be suspicious or need. They're saying that they do not need to be suspicious or need a reason to search, and they've adapted the legislation to suit. So basically, for this Section 60 that they're talking about, they don't even need to be suspect of anything. You can be walking down the street, they can say, excuse me, I'd like to search you. For no reason. They don't have to tell them what they're looking for or searching for. But that's kind of, I'm going to need to have that clarified because I'm speaking to one of the police officers soon. I'm going to need to have that clarified because there's one school of thought that says, regardless of Section 60, they still have to follow Go Wisely. They still have to have a reason and tell them what the object is and the law under which they're being stopped. But the police are kind of making it look like they can go out and do anything they like and they can stop anyone indiscriminately. And I don't think that is how it works. So what are the lessons to be learned? Police must be trained not to stereotype and make assumptions. Implicit bias, covert racism, overt racism, and complicit bias must all be managed and addressed. It needs to be talked about in the open and put on the table and addressed. It happens. We know it happens. I mean, we had Nigel Farage on Good Morning Britain, bless his little heart, trying to not answer questions because he's trying to not be labelled a racist. But, you know, just be honest. You know, they're not going to crucify you. What are they going to do? Oh, you're a racist, Nigel. Yeah, so what? I'm a racist. Just own it. You know, no point trying to be polite after, those bloody posters and goodness knows what else you say and what you were saying on LBC. So there's no point. Just own it. And I think if people owned it, it would be better. Why don't they own it? If that's what you believe, if you believe that you're superior, or if you believe that black people don't deserve the same place as you do, own it. Stop being a bloody coward. So Nigel Farage is up there, more or less doesn't want to admit anything, and it's so obvious in his behaviour. It's absolutely ludicrous. And I don't see why he just doesn't own it. Trump owns it. He can't, because of his position, he can't out and out say I'm a racist, but his behaviour and the way he supports racist acts says, well, yeah, I do. But Nigel, he hasn't got no position, has he? So he's on that program because he is a racist and to get his views. But you need to own up to it, and you need to be able to say to people, yeah, I don't like this. I don't want them taking down. I don't want them taking down Edward Colston's statue because I believe that Edward Colston was a good man. So he was a slave owner. So what? Slavery helped with our economy. That's what I believe. Own up to it. But, why are you a racist and a coward? And the thing with racists, they always hide behind weapons and behind lots of people. Do you notice that? It's never one-on-one. It's always a lot of them. So they're fearful. Oh, I always go on my little tangents, don't I? Anyway, the perception that black people are criminals needs to be changed. Yeah, we're talking about lessons learned and how we can improve situations. So the perception that black people are criminals needs to be changed. The assumption that black people who drive nice cars are drug dealers. And the thing is that you have the opportunity to track them, to trace them, to follow their movements, to find out what they're doing. But that banker, he was just going to work them back. That was easy for them to gather intelligence on his behaviour and his comings and goings. You don't just jump on somebody and accuse them of all this stuff with no intelligence. And that's what I'm saying. If you're going to accuse somebody or stop somebody, do your homework. No shortcuts. But it's not about that, is it? It's not about them finding something or accusing them. It's all fabricated. It's got nothing to do with it. They just want to get people on their police database. They just want to get as many people. They just want to give people a hard time. That's what it is. It's the hostile environment. That's what it's about, really. And if they're rich, they've got to pay to defend themselves. So the police must have due regard to children when arresting parents. Police are employed to safeguard children on the one hand, and they order children to be taken away from homes where domestic abuse takes place because of damage it does, and then they abuse parents in front of them. Police need to be respectful and polite on initial contact and ascertain whether or not an aggressive stance is necessary. Limit rough handling. You'd be surprised how a nice, respectful response receives a respectful response. It's automatic. It's human nature. Police, like the other day when those police knocked on my door. Yes, they banged. I could hear them banging. They banged quite aggressively. And yes, it is quite intimidating. But when they spoke, calmly spoken, it makes you feel at ease. But I don't understand why they have to be so aggressive. Why can't they just ring the bell? Why is there all this banging? Why do they have to exercise that authority? They must have little willies why they have to make out like they're so powerful. Honestly, it's so unnecessary. I shouldn't have really said that, but I'm just thinking, I don't understand. It's like, when they talk about the Napoleonic complex, when people are short and they have to be very loud. It's a bit like that. Why do the police feel as though they have to be abusive and aggressive and obnoxious. Not all of them, of course, but these ones that behave so disproportionately, and the use of force is so disproportionate. What are they? What is their insecurity? They obviously have some insecurity. What is it? They've got the job they want. They've got a decent salary. I'm sure they've got a family at home. They've probably got kids that they're proud of. So what is it that makes them so dissatisfied that they have to behave so bullish? Oh, I don't know. I'm just throwing. These are rhetorical questions. I'm not expecting any answers really. But you're welcome to put some suggestions in the comments book, in the comments part downstairs. Another thing for best practice: handcuffs and use of force should not be the first option. It seems to be the first option. You know, there doesn't seem to be no negotiation. It's almost like they go into defense mode. They don't say, oh, can you get out of the car, please? And, you know, I would like to talk to you. No, it's just like drag, handcuff, you know, like they're anticipating a fight. Nobody's fighting with them. Even when the gentleman is saying, look, you know, I haven't done anything wrong, officer. Can you tell me what the situation is? Get out of the car, get out of there. You know, it's so unnecessary. I wouldn't be surprised if they go home and talk to, you know, laugh about it with their wives. It's their story of the evening. It wouldn't surprise me. So, yeah, and I think the police need to stop preparing for the worst case scenario, which that's what they seem to do. They seem to have it in their minds, the worst case scenario, and that's what they react to. Why do police use unreasonable force? They're fearful, anticipation, imagining the worst case scenario, like I said. And the thing is, if you know your rights as a civilian, they think you're cocky. So you can't win, can you? If you're compliant, they'll kind of rile you up until you get angry and then, oh, I don't know. So what can be done to ensure that those who are meant to serve and protect us do? Well, the rogue police officers need to be rooted out. Poor practice needs to be investigated and scrutinised, reviewed and addressed. Repeat offenders, those are the police officers, must face financial and other consequences. And the police force is considered a job for life. So most people on the police force just believe that they become complacent. They don't believe that they have to pull their weight. So what Victor Olius was saying is that it is important, if you do get stopped by the police, to remain calm, as agitation can impact the direction of the search. Everyone should get the Y-Stop app, that's what I'm saying, on their phones. Third party filming, as long as you get the number of the police officer and location, is just as good. And even if you're unable to complete the incident form. So I think I'm going to stop it there. I'm absolutely tired. I wasn't going to do this video this evening. I thought, Moni, you've had a long day. And I don't even know what I was doing this evening. I was doing something that took me quite late. What was I doing? Or maybe I was writing my notes. I don't know. And then I thought, oh, shall I leave it till the morning and then just go straight to work, or should I do it tonight? But sometimes when I do these videos, even though I feel a bit lethargic, I feel all lively. So, and I didn't want it all to rest on my mind. I didn't want to go to bed with all of that on my mind. So I thought, let's get it out there. Let me give it to my subscribers. They can deal with it for me. And that's all for now. Bye-bye.